हरे संसारधावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणात्वम् संसारधावा नललीढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणात्वम् प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणर्नवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्यगीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसुरसेना रोमञ्चकम्पा श्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनानां शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमर्जनादो युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम् प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसीद्यै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रादिदाक्षात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षादरीत्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोया प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायं स्तुवन्तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यान् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्देशतारिणे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hariharaya Nama, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram, Shri Madhusudanam. Giri Gari Gopinath Madana Mohanam. Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita. Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita. श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्ट दास रघुनाथ हरिहराय नमः कृष्ण यादवाय नमः हरिहराय नमः कृष्ण यादवाय नमः हरिहराय नमः कृष्ण यादवाय नमः हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा नील माधव श्री राधे जय राधा नील माधव श्री राधे जय राधे जय श्री राधे श्री राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा जय सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजाकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमती डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजाकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमती डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर शील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। व्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की, श्री द्वारिका धाम की जय। अयोध्या धाम की जय। गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। श्याम वेद भक्ति विद्य की जय। युग धर्म श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. श्री श्री राधा रानी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय। श्रीमती राधा रानी अपीयरेंस डे की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल। हरे कृष्ण। नमो विष्णुपदाय
ददायिने हिरण्यकशिपुर्वक्षः हिरण्यकशिपुर्वक्षः शिलटन्कानकालये शिलटन्कानकालये एतो नशिमा परतो नशिमा इतो नशिमा परतो नशिमा जतो यतो यामि ततो नशिंगा ओ जतो यतो यामि ततो नशिंगा बहे नशिंगा हृदये नशिंगा बहिर्नशिंगा हृदये नशिंगा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तब कर कमल बर अद्भुत सिंह धलितालिरन कशिपु तनु भृंगा केशवधृता नरहरिरूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे अद्भुत सिंह केशवधृता नरहरिरूप जय जगदीश हरे जय नृसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाष राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो हे अभिलाषी ये तुम्हार शरण लोय तारो वांछ पूर्ण होय कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरैया बिलास विलास कुंजे दियो वास नयने हेरी बो सदा युगल रूपरासी हे निवेदन धरो सखीरनो गाता करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी बिना कृष्ण दासे कोई न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदय न बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदाय न बासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि
रवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दिनतारिणे रूपनुगा विरूपा सिद्धान्ता द्वन्द्व किशोराय साक्षाद् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्बारसम्बोधे पदं भुजयते नमः। नमो भक्तविनोदाय सच्चिदानन्दनामिने प्रसक्तिस्वरूपाय रूपनुगावरायते गौरविर्भवभूमे स्वं निर्देशा सज्जना प्रिया वैष्णवा सर्वभूमा श्रीजगन्नाथाय ते नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनाम्ने गौरे त्विषे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारां भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोऽस्तुते। जयतं सुरतौ पङ्गोर्मम मन्दमतेर्गति मत्सर्वस्वपदं भोजौ राधा मदनमोहनौ दिव्याद्वृन्दारण्या कल्पाद्रुमदा श्रीमद्रत्नागरा सिंहासनस्थौ श्रीमद् राधा श्रीलगोविन्ददेवो प्रेस्ताल्भिः सेव्यमानौ स्मरामि। श्रीमन् रसरसरम्बी वंशीवत ततः स्थितः कर्षन् वेणुस्वनैर्गोपीर्गोपीनादा श्रियेस्तु नः। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। गुरु प्रेम प्रिय की जय। श्री ब्रह्म संहिता की जय। ईश्वर परमा कृष्ण सच्चिदानंद विग्रह अनादिरादिर्गोविन्दः सर्वकारणकारणं चिन्तामणि प्रकारशद्मषु कल्पवृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तं लक्ष्मीसहस्रशतसम्भ्रमसेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। वेणुं क्वनन्तमनविन्ददलाय तक्षं बर्हावतं संसातितं बुधसुन्दराङ्गं कन्दर्पकोटिकमनीयविशेषशोभं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। आलोलचन्द्रकलसाद्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नागदं प्रणयकेलीकलाविलासं श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियताप्रकाशं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। अङ्गानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पन्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसद्भुजलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। अद्वैतमाच्युतम् अनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभम् अदुर्लभम् आत्मभक्तौ गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। पन्तस्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रगम्यो वायोरतापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानां सोऽप्यास्ति यत्प्रपदसिम्निय विचन्ततत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। एकोऽप्यसौरचायितं जगदन्धकोटिं यच्चक्तिरस्ति जददन्धचयन्तः अन्धन्तरसपरमानुचयन्तरस्तं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यद्भावभवितधियो मनुजास्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिषास्मनायानभूषः सूक्तैरेव निगमाप्रतिस्थैस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। आनन्दचिन्मयरसा प्रतिभाविताभिस्त्रियैव निजरूपतया कलाभिः गोलोक एव निवसति अखिलात्मभूतो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। प्रेमाञ्जनचुरितभक्तिविलोचनेन सन्ता सदैव हृदयेषु विलोकयन्ति यं श्यामसुन्दरमचिन्तगुणस्वरूपं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। रमादिमूर्तिषु कलानियमेन तिष्ठान् नानावतारमकरोद् भुवनेषु किन्तु कृष्णा स्वयं सम्भवत् समःप्यान्यो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin and is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus pearls, with head decked with petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Ramasundara is eternally manifest.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogas who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor of thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe. At one and at the same time, such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiment of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shamasundara, Krishna himself, himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, which the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Narasimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions.
Bhagavad Gita 7.1 Purport. Srinvatam swakata Krishna punyasravana kirtanah ridanta histo hi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam nashtaprayesva abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye cheta eterana vidam sitam prasatve pratidati. एवं मनस्स प्रसन्नो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते विद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्छिद्यन्ते सर्वसमस्याः क्षीयन्ते च कर्माणि दृष्टा एवात्मनीश्वरे.
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as the best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamsaya. Samangra. Understanding of the Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness can one understand the service of Krishna. Science.
Bhagavad Gita 5.29 Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhrudam sarvabhutanam jnatva mam santim rachati. Bhoktaram, the beneficiary, yajna of sacrifices, tapasam and penances and austerities, sarvaloka of all planets and the demigods thereof, Maha Ishwaram, the Supreme Lord, Suhrudam, the benefactor, Sarva of all, Bhutanam, the living entities, Jnatva, thus knowing, Mam, me, Lord Krishna, Santim, relief from material pangs, Richati, one achieves. Translation. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world, but they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than me, than he. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, Svetashvatara Upanishad 6.7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of the material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This fifth chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya. and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter. For it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control the senses in every respect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage or Brahma Nirvana. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is gradual process of the elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports to the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga or action in Krishna consciousness. Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. Sri Bhagavan Anasrita karma phalam karyam karma karotiya sa sannyasi cha yogi chana niragnirdna chakriya.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the Lord said, Anasritaha, without taking shelter, karma phalam, of the result of work, karyam, obligatory, karma work, karoti, performs, yaha, one who, saha, he, sannyasi, in the renounced order, cha, also, yogi, mystic, cha, also, not, this one, ni, without, agnihi, fire, not, nor, cha, also, akriyaha, without duty. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic. Not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. Perfect. In this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of the eightfold yoga system is a means to control the mind and the senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. Although the eightfold yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasizes that the process of karma yoga, or acting in Krishna consciousness, is better. Everyone acts in this world to maintain his family and their paraphernalia, but none is working without some self-interest, some personal gratification, be it concentrated or extended. The criterion of a perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness and not with a view to enjoy the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is a duty of every living entity because all are constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. Similarly, the living entity who acts for satisfaction of the Supreme Whole and not for personal satisfaction is the perfect sannyasi, the perfect yogi. The sannyasis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, and therefore they cease to perform agnihotra yajnas, fire sacrifices. But actually they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. Such a desire is greater than any material desire, but it is not without self-interest. Similarly, the mystic yogi who practices the yoga system with half-open eyes, ceasing all material activities, desires some satisfaction for his personal self. But a person acting in Krishna consciousness works for the satisfaction of the whole, without self-interest. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for self satisfaction. His criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyasi or perfect yogi. Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfectional symbol of renunciation, prays in this way. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavita ma jagadisha kamaye mama janmayi janmanishwari bhavata bhakti rahityuki tvayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth.
Chapter 6, Text 2. Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Yam, what? Sannyasam, renunciation. Iti, thus. Prahu, they say. Yogam, linking with the Supreme. Tam, that. Vidhi, you must know. Pandava, O son of Pandu. Na, never. He, certainly. Asanyasta, without giving up. Sankalpa, desire for self-satisfaction. Yogi, a mystic transcendentalist. Bhavati, becomes. Kaschana, anyone. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. Purport. Real sannyasa yoga or bhakti means that one should know his constitutional position as a living entity and act accordingly. The living entity has no separate independent identity. He is the marginal energy of the Supreme. When he is entrapped by material energy, he is conditioned. And when he is Krishna conscious or aware of the spiritual energy, then he is in his real and natural state of life. Therefore, when one is in complete knowledge, one ceases all material sense gratification or renounces all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. This is practiced by the yogis who restrain the senses from material attachment. But a person in Krishna consciousness has no opportunity to engage his senses in anything which is not for the purpose of Krishna. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is simultaneously a sannyasi and a yogi. The purpose of knowledge and of restraining the senses, as prescribed in the jnana and yoga process, is automatically served in Krishna consciousness. If one is unable to give up the activities of his selfish nature, then jnana and yoga are of no avail. The real aim is for a living entity to give up all selfish satisfaction and to be prepared to satisfy the Supreme. A Krishna conscious person has no desire for any kind of self enjoyment. He is always engaged for the enjoyment of the Supreme. One who has no information of Supreme must therefore be engaged in self satisfaction, because no one can stand on the platform of inactivity. All purposes are perfectly served by the practice of Krishna consciousness. Chapter 6, Text 3. Arurukshor muneryogam karma karanamuchyate yoga rudasya tasyaiva samakaranamuchyate.
Aruksha, who has just begun. Yoga, Mune, of the sage. Yogam, the Eightfold Yoga system. Karma, work. Karanam, the means. Uchite, it is to be said. Yoga, eightfold yoga. Arudasya, of one who has attained. Tasya, his. Eva, certainly. Samma, cessation of all material activities. Karanam,
the means uchate is to be said, is said to be. Translation: for one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Purport: the process of linking oneself with the Supreme is called yoga. It may be compared to a ladder for attaining the topmost spiritual realization. This ladder begins from the lowest material condition of the living entity and rises up to the perfect self-realization in pure spiritual life. According to various elevations, different parts of the ladder are known by different names, but all in all, the complete ladder is called yoga, and it may be divided into three parts, namely Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. The beginning of the ladder is called the Yoga Ruksha stage, and the highest rung is called Yugarada. Concerning the Eightfold Yoga system, attempts in the beginning to enter into meditation through regulative principles of life and practice of different sitting posture, which are more or less bodily exercises, are considered fruitive material activities. All such activities lead to achieving perfect mental equilibrium to control the senses. When one is accomplished in the practice of meditation, he ceases all disturbing mental activities. A Krishna conscious person, however, is situated from the beginning of the platform of meditation because he always thinks of Krishna. And being constantly engaged in the service of Krishna, he is considered to have ceased all material activities.
Uh, 6.4 यदि आई निन्द्रतदेषु न कर्मव अमसुजुते सर्वसंकल्प सन्यासी योग्य रुद्रा तदोच्यते. Yada, when he certainly not indraya arthasu, this in sense gratification, never kamasu, in fruitive activities, anusajjate, one necessarily engages, sarva sankalpa, of all material desires, sannyasi, renouncer, yoga aradhya, elevated in yoga, tada, at that time, uchyate, is said to be. Translation by S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Purport by Prabhupada. When a person is fully engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is pleased in himself, and thus he is no longer engaged in sense gratification or in fruitive activities. Otherwise, one must be engaged in sense gratification. Since one cannot live without engagement, Without Krishna consciousness, one must be always seeking self-centered or extended selfish activities. But a Krishna conscious person can do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna and thereby be perfectly detached from sense gratification. One who has no such realization must mechanically try to escape material desires before being elevated to the top rung of the yoga ladder.
उद्धरेत् आत्मनात्मानं नात्मानं अवसादयेत् आत्मैव हि आत्मनो बन्धुरात्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. Uddaret, one must deliver Atmana by the mind, Atmanam, the conditioned soul, Na, never, Atmanam, the conditioned soul, Avasayadayet, put into degradation, Atma, mind, Eva, certainly, he, indeed, Atmanaha, of the conditioned soul, Bandhu, friend, Atma, mind, Eva, certainly, Ripu, enemy, Atmanaha, of the conditioned soul. Translation. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word Atma denotes body, mind and soul, depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important. Since the mind is the central point of yoga practice, Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects. It is stressed herein that the mind must be trained, so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire of nations. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with false ego, which desires to lord it over the material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted to the glitter of the material nature, and in this way, the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing this point, that one must do this. It is also said, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo bandhaya vishayasango muktaye nirvishayam mana. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of the bondage, and mind detached from sense objects is the cause of liberation. This is Amrita Bandhu Upanishad 2. Therefore, the mind which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation.
Bhagavad Gita 6.6 Bandhur atmata manastasya yenatmaivatmana chita anantamanastu satruve vartetatmaiva satruvat. Bandhu, friend, Atma, the mind, Atmanaha, of the living entity, Tasya, of him, Yena, by whom, Atma, the mind, Eva, certainly, Atmana, by the living entity, Jitha, conquered, Anantatmana, of one who has failed to control the mind, too, but Satrutve, because of enmity, Varteta, remains, Atma Eva, the very mind, Satruvat, as an enemy. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Purport by Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. की जय. The purpose of practicing Eightfold Yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains as unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. Bhagavad Gita 6.7.
जितात्मानः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः जितात्मनः, one who has conquered his mind, prasantasya, one who has attained tranquility by such control over the mind, Paramatma, the super soul, samahitaha, approached completely, sita, in cold, ushna, heat, sukha, happiness, dukkheshu, and distress, tata, also mana, in honor, apamanayoho, and dishonor. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Purport. Actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to already have reached the destination. One has to abide by the superior dictation. But when one's mind is fixed on superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of the Paramatma Super Soul. Look at this transcendental position is that one achieved by the one who is in Krishna consciousness, the devotee of the Lord who is unaffected by the dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samadhi, or absorption in the Supreme.
Text 8, chapter 6. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriya Yukta iti uchite yogi Samalostrasma Kanchanaha. Jnana, backward knowledge. Vijnana, and realized knowledge. Trupta, satisfied. Atma, a living entity. Kutastha, spiritually situated. Vijitendriyaha, sensually controlled. Yukta, competent for self-realization. Iti, thus. Uchyate is said. Yogi, a mystic. Sama, equipoised. Lostra, pebbles. Asma, stone. Kanchanaha, gold. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Purport. Book knowledge without realization of the Supreme Truth is useless. This is stated as follows. Ata Sri Krishna Namadi na bhaved grahyam indriyaihi सेवान्मुखे हि जिह्वादौ स्वयं yeva spurati adah. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord, or the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. This Bhagavad Gita is the science of Krishna consciousness. No one can become Krishna conscious simply by mundane scholarship. One must be fortunate enough to associate with a person who is in pure consciousness. A Krishna conscious person has realized knowledge by the grace of Krishna because he is satisfied with pure devotional service. By realized knowledge, one becomes perfect. By transcendental knowledge, one can remain steady in his convictions. But by mere academic knowledge, one can be easily deluded and confused by apparent contradictions. It is the realized soul who is actually self controlled because he is surrendered to Krishna. He is transcendental because he has nothing to do with mundane scholarship. For him, mundane scholarship and mental speculation, which may be as good as gold to others, are of no greater value than pebbles or stones. Text 9, chapter 6. Saranmitrare udasina madhyastha dveshya bandhusu sadhusu api cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate.
Word to word. Word to word.
Yes.
Suharat, to well wishers by nature. Mitra, benefactors with affection. Ari, enemies. Udasina, neutrals between belligerents. Madhyastha, mediators between belligerents. Dvesha, the envious. Bandhushu, and the relatives of well-wishers. Sadhusu, unto the pious. Api, as well as. Cha, and. Papeshu, unto the sinners. Samabuddhi, having equal intelligence. Vishishyate, is far advanced. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, and the envious friends and enemies, and the pious of the sinners. The pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitaha ekaki yata chittatma nirashir aparigraha. Yogi, a transcendentalist, yunjita, must concentrate in Krishna consciousness, satatam, constantly, atmanam, himself by body, mind and self, rahasi, in a secluded place, stita, being situated, ekaki, alone, yada chittatma, always careful in mind, nirasi, without being attracted by anything else, aparigraha, free from the feeling of possessiveness. Translation: a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from the desires and feelings of possessiveness. Purport: Krishna is realized in different degrees as Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna consciousness means concisely to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. But those who are attached to the impersonal Brahman or localized supersoul are also particularly Krishna conscious because the impersonal Brahman is the spiritual ray of Krishna and the supersoul is the all pervading partial expansion of Krishna. Thus, the impersonalist and meditator are also indirectly Krishna conscious. A directly Krishna conscious person is the topmost transcendentalist because such a devotee knows what is meant by Brahman and Paramatma. His knowledge of the absolute truth is perfect, whereas the impersonalist and the meditative yogi are imperfectly Krishna conscious. Nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him even for a moment. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called samadhi or trance. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness because direct Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. Srila Rupa Goswami characterizes Krishna consciousness in this way. Anasaktasya vishayan yathartam upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchyate. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshibhihi parityagu vairagyam falgu katyate. When one is not attached to anything but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. On the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is not complete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.255 to 256. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental and he is always alone, having nothing to do with the persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi.
Bhagavad Gita 6:11 to 12. Suchaye desi paritastapaya sitaram stiram asanam atmana nati uchitam nati nichayam Chailajana kustotaram tatraikaram mana kritva yata chitendraya kriya upavitsayani sane yunuda, right? Yunjet. Yogam atma Vishwa Vishuddha Vishuddhay. Suchi in in a sanctified Desi land Pratistapaya placing Sitaram firm Asanam seat Atmana its own Na not Ati tu Uchiritam I Na nar Ati tu Nicham low Shaila Ajina of soft cloth and deer skin, Kusha and Kusha grass, Uttaram covering, Tatra thereupon, Ekagram with one attention, Mana mind, Krutva making, Yatat Sita controlling the mind, Indriya senses, Kriya and activities, Upa Visaya sitting, Asane on the seat, Yunjuyate should execute, Yogam yoga practice, Atma the art, Vishodaya for clarifying. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. To practice yoga, one should go to a secular place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sacred place refers to places of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists, or the devotees all leave home and reside in sacred places such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Arikesh, and Haridwar, and in solitude practice yoga where the sacred rivers like the Yamuna and the Gangas flow. But often this is not possible, especially for Westerners. The so-called yoga society in big cities may be successful in earning material benefit, but they are not at all suitable for the actual practice of yoga. One who is not self-controlled and whose mind is not undisturbed cannot practice meditation. Therefore, in the Brihan Naradaya Purana, it is said that in Kali Yuga, the present Yuga or age, when people in general are short-lived, slow in spiritual realization, and also disturbed by various anxieties, the best means of spiritual realization is chanting the holy name of the Lord. Arer Nama, Arer Nama, Arer Nama Iva Kevalam Kulanasti Eva Nasti Eva Nasti Eva Gadir Anyata. In the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way.
Saman kaya siro grivam dharyan achalam stira sampreksha nasi kagram swara disas chanan valokayan prasannatma vigata bhir brahmachari vrate sthita mana samyamya machitto yukta sita matpara. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in the straight line and stare steadily at the top of the nose. Thus, with the unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Purport. The goal of life is to know Krishna, who is situated within the heart of every living being as Paramatma, the four-headed Vishnu form. The yoga process is practiced in order to discover and see the localized form of Vishnu, and not for any other purpose. The localized Vishnu Murti is the plenary representation of Krishna dwelling within one's heart. One who has no program to realize the Vishnu Murti is uselessly engaged in mock yoga practice and certainly wasting his time. Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and Vishnu Murti situated in one's heart is the object of yoga practice. To realize this Vishnu Murti within the heart, one has to observe complete abstinence from sex life. Therefore, one has to leave home and live alone in a secluded place, remaining seated as mentioned above. One cannot enjoy sex life at home or elsewhere and attend so called yoga class and become a yogi. One has to practice controlling the mind and avoid all kinds of sense gratification, of which sex life is the chief. In the rules of celibacy written by a great sage Yajnavalkya, it is said, Karmana manasa vacha sarvavastu sarvada sarvatra maithuna tyago brahmacharyan prachakshate. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in words and mind at all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood when one has no knowledge of sex life. Children at the age of 5 are sent to Gurukula or to the place of spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in the strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it is dhyan, gyan, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life, having a sexual relationship only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is also called a brahmachari. Such a restrained householder, brahmachari, may be accepted in bhakti school, but the Gyan and Dhyan schools do not even admit householder brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence without compromise. In the bhakti school, the householder brahmachari is allowed controlled sex life because the cult of bhakti yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction, being engaged in the superior service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Vishaya vini विनिवर्तन्ते निराहर्ष्य देहिना राशव्रजं रसो वयव्यास्य param drishtva nivartate. Wherever others are forced to restrain her, whereas others are forced to restrain themselves from sense gratification, a devotee of the Lord automatically refrains because of superior taste. Other than the devotee, no one has any information of that superior taste. Vibhagabdi. Vibhagata bhi. One cannot be fearless until one is fully in Krishna consciousness. A conditioned soul is fearful due to perverted memory, his forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with Krishna. The Bhagavatam 11.2.37 says, Bhayam dviti abhinevishtaha sad sad apeksya viprayo smriti. Krishna consciousness is the only basis of fearlessness. Therefore, perfect practice is possible for the person who is Krishna conscious. And since the ultimate goal of yoga practice is to see the Lord within, a Krishna conscious person is already the best of all yogis. The principles of yoga system mentioned here are different from those of the popular so-called yoga societies. Krishna.
o'clock, yes. Cool. Yeah, yeah. Right. That's cool at 9 o'clock. Middle school early. Middle school goes early. Which school? Sunny Hills.
When you're talking about middle school, are you talking about like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like 4
Yeah.
o'clock?
Okay, play. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Abhi play. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Guru Cherana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Mandamuyi Savadana Mate.
Mandamuyi Savadana Mate.
Jehara Prasadi Bhai E Baba Toriya Jai.
Hara Prasade Bhai E Baba Toriya Jai.
Krishna Prapti ho jahan hote.
Krishna Prapti ho jahan hote.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Kya.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chidete Koriya Kya.
Narana Koriya Mani Asha.
Rana Kori Ho Mane Asha.
Guru Cherani Rati Ese Utama Gati.
Guru Charane Rati Ese Utama Gati.
Jai Prasadi Pure Sarva Asha.
Ade Pure Sarva Asha.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दान दिलो दे धन में प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
भक्ति जा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेदिकाय जहाँ चरितो
वेदिकाय जहाँ चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदामा जनारा बंधु लोकाना लोकेरा जीवाना
नाथ लोकेरा जीवाना
आह प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पादा छाया
प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छाया
बेजास गुसुक त्रिभुवाना
बेगास गुसुक त्रिभुवाना
प्रभु पाद पतिता पवाना
पाद पतिता पवाना
जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा
प्रभु पदा प्रभु पदा प्रभु पदा जय प्रभु पदा
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे प्रवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष्य शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्या प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गणधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गर शिव चरित गौर भक्त बेंदा
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Nityai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nityai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hare Bol Nitai Gaura Hare Bol
The lotus feet of our spiritual masters are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and Master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.